Whether mercenaries or draftees, they would go months without pay. They waited in vain for the promised waterproof clothing. There was no real supply chain. And yet taxes were constantly being increased throughout the empire. Money regularly disappeared long before it got to the frontiers, into the pockets of corrupt officers and officials. The completion of the wall brought with it the financial and spiritual bankruptcy of the Ming dynasty. In 1644, a rebel army led by a peasant, Li Sicheng, plundered and pillaged its way towards Beijing. And there's a second threat to the creaking dynasty in Beijing. On the steppes, a powerful enemy is gathering, 100 years after Altan Khan, the Manchu. At the eastern end of the wall at the Dragon's Head, an army of Manchu horsemen has gathered. Close by is the fortress of Shanhaiguan. Calligraphy decorating the East Tower announces its proud name, the first pass under heaven. This fortress protects the plain between the mountains and the Dragon's Head at the edge of the Yellow Sea. In 1644, the first pass under heaven is the scene of a fateful decision that will shake the Middle Kingdom to its core. The commander of Shanhaiguan is General Wu, one of the last army commanders still loyal to the Ming dynasty. The advance guard of the Manchu are camped in plain sight, but they make no attempt to take the fortress. They're waiting. By May 1644, the situation in the empire is hopeless. Li Sicheng, the rebel leader, has taken control of the Forbidden City. The emperor is dead. But General Wu has refused to go over to the rebels. It may still be possible to throw them out of Beijing and save the dynasty. Then General Wu receives news from Beijing. It's about the rebel leader Li Sicheng. Li Sicheng has taken General Wu's father hostage. He demands that the general swear allegiance to him as the new ruler of the Forbidden City, or his father will die. Then the ambassador hands General Wu a letter, supposedly from his father. The old man begs the general to obey the new ruler at once and so save his life. His obligations to his own father must override his loyalty to the Ming dynasty. And a gift from Li Sicheng should make his decision easier. How would the general decide? Did he have a choice at all? On May the 27th, 1644, at dawn, General Wu opens the gates of his fortress to the invading Manchu armies. Rather the Manchu ruling the empire than a peasant on the dragon throne. The Manchu expel the rebels from the Forbidden City, and they take power for themselves. They found a new dynasty that will rule the Middle Kingdom until the year 1911. They call themselves the Qing, the pure ones. "150 years after the gates of China were opened to his ancestors, a Qing emperor receives a British trade delegation for the first time. Lord Macartney had refused to kowtow, the traditional gesture of humility before the emperor. In Chinese etiquette, this is an insult. But that wasn't the only reason Macartney failed to establish trade links with China. "We do not have the slightest need of your country's manufactures," is the judgment of the Son of Heaven. For the emperor, the British envoys are no more than barbarians from a distant, unknown corner of the world. Foreigners who begged to be given the honor of paying him tribute. The British envoy's mission is a complete disaster. Macartney had admired the Great Wall of stone, but he had stumbled on another invisible wall. A wall that had surrounded the Middle Kingdom for 2,000 years. Nearly 50 years later, Thomas Staunton, who had accompanied the mission as a boy, would make an impassioned speech in Parliament calling for war against China to enforce England's right to trade. These barbarians brought down the Chinese Empire without scaling any walls. They came across the sea from Europe. China's walls, visible and invisible, crumbled over time. The Great Wall could not protect the Middle Kingdom from its enemies. Some overcame it with force, others found the gates were opened for them. Yet it remains a symbol of national power. North of Beijing, where the stone dragon winds majestically over mountains and across ravines, this architectural masterpiece will still leave you speechless. The myth of the Great Wall in people's minds will always be more powerful than the truth of its checkered history.